Hello, my friends, and konnichiwa from Tokyo. Welcome back to Newconomy online stream. I'm Christina, and today we have one special guest. By the age of 30, he has built the first crypto law firm in Philadelphia. He was the founder of a mining company and runs a digital asset venture fund. But before we start, let me introduce you our sponsor, Crypterium. Crypterium is building a mobile app that will turn cryptocurrencies into money that you can spend with the same as cash. Shop around the world and pay with your coins and tokens at any NFC terminal or via scanning QR code. Make purchases in online stores. Pay your bills or just send money across borders in seconds reliably and for a fraction of a penny. Okay, guys, let me introduce you our guest. It's Andrew Bull. Hello, Andrew.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
It's a pleasure. So, I have one question. Did you try to Google yourself? It's kind of a silly, but I usually try to Google my guests, to know them. And I literally spent 1 hour yesterday, and I couldn't find any information about you. So, can you tell us more about yourself, please?
Yeah, for sure. So I kind of like that for now. It's kind of nice. But no, so I was fortunate enough to find Bitcoin back in 2011. I stumbled upon it in a subreddit and kind of did a deep dive on a personal level. And at the time, I was going to law school in the States and ended up writing a thesis, basically a legal analysis of the regulation of cryptocurrencies, both in the United States and then abroad as well. Around that same time was actually when we first started building GPU miners, and that kind of expanded into an actual full-fledged company. And we fully transitioned from GPU miners over to ASIC miners near the end of 2016. And when Bitmain and the larger manufacturers started really kind of churning out ASIC miners. Around the same time of the mining company actually kind of taking off, we also created a digital asset fund. And so we were actually taking a lot of our mining profits and leveraging that into our institutional fund. And so from that perspective, we were kind of on both sides of the coin, for lack of a better term, in that we were mining, but also using those mining profits to invest in potential projects. And we had a multi-tiered investment strategy process where we focused on some larger market cap coins. We've always been really big fans of dApp-based platforms such as Ethereum. And so we really kind of focused in on those, but then also smaller projects as well. But yeah, and then that call kind of came to fruition near probably the end of 2017, obviously, which was in line with the explosion of the market, and everything went really well. But I also fully transitioned over into starting a law firm because just even experiencing myself in the States and then even traveling abroad and working with people abroad in certain jurisdictions, there's just not nearly enough legal services in the space that provide quality services of people who actually understand where the tech's coming from, what it's trying to do, what it's trying to disrupt. So that's kind of a little bit into my background.
Oh, that's perfect. Thank you. And for how long? I heard that you got your mining firm. So for how long was it profitable?
We were completely profitable for almost its entire existence up until probably February or March of 2018. So a little to the end of Q1 of 2018. Obviously, that was indicative of the market. And luckily, a lot of the machines that we had acquired near the end of 2016 and 2017 had already paid themselves off and paid dividends beyond that. And so we were lucky enough to kind of continue on and keep running miners that were not necessarily as profitable as they had been in the past. And a lot of them, so we were mining across 3 different algorithms: the SHA-256 algorithm, which is the Bitcoin algorithm, and then the script algorithm, which the main coin on that is Litecoin, and then also the X3 algorithm, which is Dash. And then we got a little bit into Etherhash and a couple other like CryptoNight, a couple of these other algorithms. And we were really profitable all the way up until that point. But then just the continued decline, obviously, in value of certain coins, and then the smaller projects also falling off and really getting hit the hardest. That is where we saw a decline for sure.
I see. And if it's not a secret, how much money you have made on crypto, on mining, on consulting? It's
So
not like I'm coming to the United States and just for people to understand.
yeah. So as an attorney, obviously, like I have to disclose is that everything I say is not legal or financial advice, and I'm just kind of talking about my experiences. But yeah, no, I was very lucky. So I think the first batch of Bitcoins I purchased were around $30 each,
Oh,
and
wow.
yeah, which is crazy to think about right now. And if you had asked me back then, interestingly enough, if Bitcoin would have gone to $20,000 within the next 7 years, I would have been like, I would have been very skeptical and been like, probably not. That's going to be pretty wild. But anyways, I held on to those for quite some time and was
Mhm.
very fortunate enough to make well over six figures. So we'll leave it at that if I can.
Okay, what do you think about current situation on the market?
Yeah, so it's interesting. So, and this is something I kind of talk about pretty constantly when I'm speaking at events. And really, for me, just having been in the space so long and seeing this advancement, not only with the technology, but also growth of projects, much more money kind of coming into the market. Even if the overall market cap is in decline, we still see a lot of investment going into blockchain based businesses, companies who have a token, things like that. So, for me, I'm very much like, long term with this, going to be in it most likely for the rest of my life. But just a little experience that I have that I usually bring up to people is that I had invested in a couple different cryptos, and there was only about six
Mhm.
or seven in existence back near 2015. And a very similar situation happened where Bitcoin went up, and not obviously to $20,000, but and then it declined pretty significantly, really fast. And at the time, I mean, I went through the whole emotional reaction and everything along those lines that goes with it. But then, like, slowly kind of just wrote it out. And it was actually around the same time frame that we're going through right now. It was a little more than a year before it fully corrected and actually got back to the stabilized price that had been before. And so, just having gone through that, I kind of try to express that for those of you who think that it might never get back to where it's going to be, I would be highly skeptical of that point, just because I've seen it before so many different times. And so, it's a kind of a cyclical cycle.
I see. So, do you believe like the crypto winter will end with the coming summer, or you are positive like it will be stable in 1 year?
Yeah, so the one thing with that, so I'd say like I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't stabilize by then, mostly because if you look at the increase in percentage of the market between the probably the mid to like Q3 of 2017, and then the run up to when we really hit the highest levels near the end of December and early January of 2018, that percentage increase was drastically higher than the percentage increase that I experienced in 2015, and then the percentage increase that I experienced even before that. And so I would say that probably as a takeaway for me is that I anticipate maybe the recovery period being a little bit longer. So I would probably project maybe like end of 2019 as like a really conservative estimate of it kind of coming all the way back around.
So holding.
Yeah, well, yeah, for sure. I mean, again, this kind of like I come from the perspective that it's a volatile market, it's a risky investment. That's what I mean, it's going to be like that while we're in an immature market for many years, and that people shouldn't be investing their life savings or their 401k or something like that. Like experiment with it, maybe like do research into specific projects you like, figure out how the technical capabilities of this technology actually works, how you can actually acquire tokens. Maybe if you get enough confidence, experiment in an ICO. Now probably is maybe not the best time, but then again, this is actually, it's funny because if there's one thing that I've learned from the market is that doing the opposite of what everyone else is doing is the best strategy. And so the issue is that if everyone adopts that, then everyone's doing the opposite, and then it becomes that everyone's doing it. So
Yeah. So, just to understand for us all, what is the tax situation now in the crypto market, like in the crypto world? Like, for example, should I pay tax if I trade and I just made profit, okay, like $1,000 on
yeah.
on selling the crypto assets on an exchange? Should I pay tax to the local government, or what is the situation now?
Yeah, for sure. So I think that embedded within that answer, it really is contingent on whichever jurisdiction you're in. So I'll highlight maybe what the US does in their approach and then talk about a couple other jurisdictions for examples. But for the most part, I would say that whatever jurisdiction you as an individual are domiciled in, meaning you live there and you have a residence, wherever that jurisdiction is, you should consider paying taxes in that jurisdiction. And so, for example, in the US right now, as a US citizen, I'm required to pay taxes on all my crypto trades. And what's really interesting about that is that 2 years ago, it was simply fiat to crypto, and I was taxed on that transaction. So I could take cash, fiat cash, put it into Bitcoin, and then invest in all the other smaller market cap coins that I wanted to, exchange it all back to Bitcoin, send it to fiat. What was only taxed was the transaction between fiat and Bitcoin in that scenario. And then they changed it and they made inter crypto trading taxable, meaning that it was a taxable event every time that I traded, say, Ethereum to BAT token or Ethereum to EOS token. Like, regardless, whatever the transaction was, it ended up being a taxable event. So, me being an attorney and wanting to be as compliant as possible, I submitted a stack of papers. I mean, it was massive. It was huge. It was this massive envelope full of it to the IRS in the States, showing every single trade that I made. And then I had a kind of an estimate of what I owed in taxes, and they accepted it. And then I ended up paying that. And I think that from an individual perspective, that one of the issues probably within this space to begin with is that we're trying to kind of balance this idea of decentralization and really kind of removing yourself from traditional financial institutions. But at the same time, like, you don't want to risk whatever it is that you have within your life already by necessarily not paying taxes in whatever jurisdiction you live in. And so, and if it's multiple jurisdictions, that's another consideration as well, because you really have to think about, okay, what exchanges am I using? Where's my IP address when I'm actually conducting a transaction? And all those things are kind of go into the overall evaluation of, okay, maybe I pay here, maybe I don't necessarily need to pay here. And if it's larger sums, then I would contact the local representatives or local regulators in whatever jurisdiction you're in to just kind of confirm, or maybe not, or get a confirmation that you don't have to necessarily pay in that jurisdiction if you're not necessarily operating in that jurisdiction. So
I see. Got it. Okay, I will go somewhere to call somebody to know those things. So I have a few more topics to discuss with Andrew, such as 3 most important things, on his opinion, people should remember while trading or making transactions with crypto. And for that, we will switch our live stream to the Newconomy Club. If you want to enjoy company with our guest, ask him your questions, and see the rest interview, please sign up by the link. And we will see you there in 2 minutes. So you will have a chance to refill your cup and prepare your questions. So see you shortly.